We get to the cup like Julian Reese's. We'll make some floating love to your booze like Bowie. That's what we do here on Big Ten Today, presented by Old National Bank. Got bars, Trent Meacham.
What a start.
Spitting bars, Trent Meacham. That's what we do, man. This edition of the show. Yes, Anthony Herron here alongside Trent Meacham. It is Valentine's Day, so we gotta be in the theme of the season. Yes. I wore my Valentine's
I forgot my
garb.
red. My bad.
Red socks, at least, maybe something.
Not too much red in my wardrobe.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. This is actually all I got that's red as well, man. But on the hardwood last night, there was a lot of things. The home teams held serve. This home thing in the Big Ten, I feel like, it's a Valentine's theme a bit on the show. Is that a theme for the conference season? It's just been really tough to win on the road.
It's always hard to win on the road. Always, year in, year out. It seems like this year's no different. And last night, we saw two of the teams in Wisconsin and Illinois, just a couple games behind Purdue. We'll see if they can make a final season push. Both coming off losses back in the win column. We'll see what can transpire. They both have Purdue coming up on their schedules as well, so it will be interesting coming down the stretch here of the season.
Yeah, cannot wait to see how things continue to progress here in Big Ten play. That is our big story with the action that happened on the hardwood in men's basketball last night. The Fighting Illini came out with a big win, controlled the action against Michigan at 97-68. And the Wisconsin Badgers, after losing their previous 4 games, they got the win over Ohio State. It was at times a game Ohio State squad, but a big win for the Badgers. And that's where we should probably start our conversation, Trent, because Wisconsin had been one of the best teams in America for the bulk of the season, and they just hadn't been playing like it as of late. So last night, yes, Ohio State is not a team who's shown themselves amongst the best in the conference or the country or anything, but to get a win at home with how Wisconsin was reeling, it feels significant.
After 4 straight losses, they had moved up to 6th in the country and kind of find themselves reeling. I thought their confidence, Anthony, had really been shaken recently. And last night, only scoring 62 points. I don't know how much confidence they got there, but just to get a win is really good for them. I thought a critical thing was getting Steven Crowell the ball. He took 14 shots, went 7 for 14, made a couple threes. In their four losses, he only took 20 shots those entire 4 games. So to get him the ball, to play through him, he can play in the post, play on the perimeter a bit, I think was really crucial. And when I look at their front line for Wisconsin, and Crowell, Wall, A.J. Storr, they go for 40 points and 29 rebounds. Contrasting with the Ohio State front line, Akpara, Mahaffey, Jamison Battle, who struggled, they had 15 points, 15 rebounds. So really dominated in the paint, out-rebounded them, outscored them by 10 second chance points, got to the free throw line 16 to only 2 free throws for Ohio State. So that's where Ohio State or Wisconsin has to play, in the paint, dominating the glass, playing through the post. They did that last night.
I want to get to that Badgers offense in a moment, but the Badgers defense, you and I have talked about this a bit throughout the season so far. It didn't seem to me like this had been the brand of Badgers defense under Greg Gard. As their offense was flourishing a bit, the defense hadn't necessarily been as good as we've seen in recent years. What did they do that was so effective last night defensively?
Well, they're just solid, for one. They're solid like they always are. And I start with Chucky Hepburn at the point of attack. I thought he's been good all season, but especially against Bruce Thornton. Thornton had 18 points, but it took him 19 shots to do so. So Hepburn up there guarding the best perimeter player for Ohio State, I thought was very good. He's active with his hands. He'll take the rock from you, sets the table offensively. But that's where it starts for them defensively. They're solid. They're disciplined. They've gotten away from that, I think, because of how efficient, how good they've been on offense this year, Anthony. They haven't had to rely on their defense like they have in years past. So I think if they can get back to that, locking teams down, forcing tough shots, controlling the boards, now if that offense can find some footing, playing through the post first, if they can knock down some shots, that's where they're really good.
12 rebounds for A.J. Storr. Is that the type of thing where when you have a player who can handle the ball, actually get rebounds for you, it feels like that enhances maybe the aggression of others, but can that sort of be an engine for Wisconsin? Because it wasn't a great offensive night for them, but having him be one of their main rebounders, can that be an engine for their offense moving forward?
I believe so, and that's a great point, Anthony. 6 of those, I believe, were on the offensive glass. And if you look at A.J. Storr, 6'7", 220 or so, plays above the rim. I think along with Terrence Shannon, maybe Colin Carr, young player at Michigan State, the best athletes in the Big Ten Conference. So when he's aggressive, going to the offensive glass, he's a load to handle. You do not want to box him out. And if you don't box him out, he might tip dunk that on your head. So his activity level I thought was fantastic last night. Greg Gard spoke about it in the postgame, just challenging him. get to the offensive glass, especially when things are stagnant, when that three ball's not going down for you. Only took 1 3, but still scored 14 points. Get out in transition. But, man, you don't have to run a play for you. If you go get it off the glass like A.J. Storr did last night, that just gives them another weapon on the offensive end for the Badgers.
I heard the word transition a moment ago, and that makes me think of the Illini and what they did last night at home against Michigan. There are very few teams in college basketball that look as dangerous in the open court as the Illini do when they're out running. And Terrence Shannon Jr., certainly last night, maybe the last couple of games, starting to look like the guy we saw early in the season again.
31 points for TSJ, goes 5 for 8 from the three-point line. Yeah. You know, I thought, Anthony, that Michigan played well the first 16 minutes or so of the game. It was a balanced offensive effort. They switched up their defense, man-to-man and zone, and then Illinois just busted it open. And they did that in transition. They did that from behind the arc, 8 for 14 from 3 in the first half from beyond the arc. They outscored them by 33 points from the three-point line. And then in transition, where they're at their best, and why are they so good in transition? Because everybody on the floor, just about, they get the rebound, they can push it themselves. Whether it's Coleman Hawkins, Ty Rogers, Damask, and nobody's better than TSJ in the open court. And we saw that last night. You know, that was a 4 or 5 point game with a few minutes left in the first half. And all of a sudden, it's an 18-point game because they take those misses and they convert them into touchdowns. And Illinois, led by TSJ in the open court, they're as good as it gets in transition.
When they're at their best defensively, because it does seem like that's a part of what, in addition to the rebounding you're talking about, but it seems like when they're coming up with stops on defense, that can be an engine for their offense and getting into the open court. What do they do defensively when they're at their best?
Well, you just look at their individual players, okay? They're all lockdown guys. Most of their team, 6'6", and above. A guy like Coleman Hawkins at 6'10", 6'11", can guard everybody. So their versatility, how they can switch across the board, they're long, they're athletic. You might get into the paint, but it's tough to convert there against the Illini defense. Some teams have had a little success playing through the post. If you have a big post player, as Coleman Hawkins really is maybe even more comfortable on the perimeter or on the help side defense. But they're so good individually, each guarding their yard. The one thing, Anthony, I would maybe like to see them do a bit more is to change things up. Okay, you have an experienced group. You have a lot of versatility, as I mentioned. You have athletic guys. Can they find moments to be more aggressive? I saw them do this one play last night. Into the first half, they jumped a ball screen and almost forced a turnover, forced Michigan into the backcourt, made them reset their offense. And I look at the personnel, and as you go ahead and you think you're going to be playing, you want to be playing deep into March, playing against some great teams, some great individual talents. If you give them the same look every time, drop coverage on ball screens, maybe not trapping the post against a great post player, I think they can do more of that and be disruptive because they don't turn the ball over, but they do force tough contested twos, which you want. I just like to see them at moments get more aggressive.
A guy like Justin Harmon, that more often than not comes off the bench for them, he seems to be an element of their depth. Are you satisfied with what you've seen from the Illini depth overall as we think about them as a team that can go deep in March?
They do have some good depth. I think they're still trying to figure out some rhythm, some consistency from that bench. When Terrence Shannon was out, it was pretty clear. The roles were clear. Everybody was having more minutes, more shots, more opportunities. Now you have your best player back as they want, but some of these guys are still, I think, kind of finding the role. I thought Quincy Guerrier took a step last night after not playing as well lately, but you have guys like Goody, Justin Harmon, if they can knock down shots, and it's not going to be every night. They don't need to score 10, 12 points every night, but they need to be ready to go when they have those openings, be assertive in those openings. Justin Harmon's a great example. If he can do that, that gives them more firepower off the bench.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing what they do because they're one of these teams of a few in the Big Ten
Dangerous.
that have that potential to maybe make a Final Four run. We'll have more from Trent later on. Big interview. DeShaun Foster, the new coach, the new head coach of UCLA football, with me now on Big Ten Today. Coach, let me be one of the latest of the individuals who I'm sure you've gotten a lot of congratulations and excitement there in LA, but congratulations to you, sir. The excitement, the emotion that was there was evident yesterday. It's been a whirlwind year for you, though. Give us a bit of a sense for between, your family life and your professional life, everything that's kind of gone on in recent months.
Yeah, this last calendar year has really been special for me, But first, let me just say thank you. You congratulated me, and I want to say thank you. Thanks for having me on your show and everything. But like I was saying, this year has been a very special, getting married, having a child, getting into the Hall of Fame here at UCLA, then getting the Raider job, and then now coming back to UCLA being the head football coach. So, it's been a whirlwind time, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it, and I'm going to take this favor that I'm getting with my marriage.
And a lot of us have seen those images of what it was like when Martin Jarman welcomed you into the team meeting room, made that announcement of you being the head coach. So between that with the players who you've, of course, gotten to know so well, and then the public reaction, the sentiment has been so positive to you becoming the head coach. What has that felt like to receive sort of this adulation coming off of a time that for a few days felt pretty uncertain for the program?
It's pretty amazing, just like you said, just where it kind of seemed the program was at. It's just great to see the support and from everybody, from the current players, former players, donors, regular alumni, just people in the community, other coaches that aren't even connected to me. So I've been getting so many people reaching out to me. I'm just excited to be in this situation, and like I've been saying, I'm ready to hit the ground running.
Now, we're just over a week removed from you being publicly announced that you'd accepted the job in the NFL, like you referenced with the Raiders. As you were going through that process of transitioning from UCLA to becoming an NFL coach, was there any sense that this opportunity may end up presenting itself and you'd have the chance a little over a week later to be the Bruins head man?
I knew there was a chance, but you still never know. You gotta go through the process. I'm just glad that I was able to kill the interview process, and they really saw my passion and saw my vision, and we were able to get to a point to where they were comfortable handing the keys over to me.
And the development of the running back room has been one of the biggest parts of your resume as a coach at UCLA. Just seeing guys, starter after starter, at times, guys who were backups going to the National Football League. That development, how do you extrapolate the approach you've used as a position coach and have your entire roster, have the program be one of development at UCLA?
I'm just a big component of development. You gotta get guys, you gotta evaluate, you gotta develop, and then let them soar. So I just think that I got to do this on a bigger scale. I've been able to show that I could do this in my room, but now I got to do it on the team aspect. I got 120 guys that I'm trying to develop, and I'm going to just take this time out to make sure that I have the correct coaches in my corner, guys that, really want to teach, want to educate these guys about football and off the field stuff also. So, I'm pretty excited. I think that this, a lot of people are thinking that this job is really going to be overwhelming, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready to embrace it. I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I've had a lot of challenges in my life, and I've been successful. So I'm going to continue to just believe in myself and going for it.
We're unquestionably pretty early in the DeShaun Foster era of leading UCLA football, but do you have any ideas, any sense right now for how the program will look different, will in any ways kind of present differently than what we've gotten accustomed to seeing here in recent years?
The energy, you're going to see some guys out here that are competing and been playing with high level of energy. We're gonna get out there and have fun. So I just want guys that want to be great, that want to come in and work hard, and you're gonna have fun doing it. It's still football, still the same game that they've been playing their whole life. Just the stuff on the outside around the stadium changes. The field is still the same, and I'm gonna just have my guys ready to go, and I'm looking forward to joining the Big Ten.
And one of the things you mentioned during the introductory press conference was about recruiting nationally, and UCLA is certainly a brand that's capable of that. Will that be anything that's maybe different in pockets of the country, maybe that you would be looking to go to recruit than what maybe we've come accustomed to seeing with UCLA football?
Yeah, most definitely. We just have to cast a bigger net. We have to. This brand. This is a real brand. Like UCLA has a brand that stands on itself. A lot of people know this school, so we need to give them access to it. We shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves in just West Coast recruiting. We could really be national. We can go to Florida. I played with Freddie Mitchell. Freddie's from Lakeland. I played with guys from Texas. Robert Thomas, he lived in Texas, then he moved to San Diego, first rounder. So there's a lot of guys. Played with some kids from Virginia. But you just have to get out there and really just recruit. This is the name of the game. It's not about coaching or play calling. It's about these players, and you got to really get out there and make sure that you have the top caliber players to put your best foot forward.
And now that you've got the big whistle, it will be your responsibility, of course, to fill out your coaching staff. You've got a number of assistants that you'll need to hire, offensive coordinator and some others. Spring ball's kind of around the corner here, Coach. So what kind of timeline do you plan to operate on in getting your staff together?
That should happen probably within like the next week, finishing out the staff. I just finished talking to everybody on the staff. I had to get with the players first, make sure everything's good there. Then I met with the staff. Like I said, I'm gonna meet with donors today and then circle back to the staff again. So these next week, we should have some positions filled.
As I watched you yesterday, the word investment came to mind for me, just with the energy that you exuded there at the table, the emotion that you spoke about in your playing days and now in the current time with UCLA football. It struck me with financial investment. It struck me with emotional investment for the fans around the program. How do you plan on trying to enhance both those things, the resources invested into UCLA football and the investment of those who care about the program?
Just giving them access to this program. I want people to see, when you see stuff and it looks great, you want to be involved with it. You want to come out, they want to support it. So I need to give them access to UCLA football. The more that they can have access to it, the more that they can see our passion, how hard these players are practicing, how hard they're playing, trying to win games. The sky's the limit. So I just want to let the fans know that you have full access to UCLA football. Come support us at practice. Come watch us in spring. Make sure you sell out the spring game. Just come out here and you're going to actually get something that you want to see.
I may take you up on that myself, Coach. I've been out to Westwood. I've called some games in the past at the Rose Bowl. It is as gorgeous as anyone could anticipate. I got one more for you here, just out of curiosity, because a lot of the discussion in recent weeks has been where we've seen head coaches, some of them prominent, taking other opportunities. Of course, it happened with your program that you're leading now. Some people think that the modern sort of aspects of college football, NIL and the transfer portal, are maybe pushing coaches away from their roles with the sport. And yet here you are. You're running towards this opportunity that'll put more on your plate than you've ever dealt with before. Why are you the right guy for this? And what is it about the modern landscape of the sport that really doesn't seem to intimidate you?
I just think that the athletes are changing, so these are different kids. These are different athletes. They have different needs. They have different wants. So it's just all about the athletes at this time. And you got to be able to relate to them and reach them. So I think that I do a good job in relating to these kids, motivating them and getting them to play for me. So that's why I'm excited to get in this role on a bigger scale. I'm just excited to embrace it. I know that my calling is to teach. So I'm gonna get out here and develop these boys and get them going.
Well, we are certainly excited to watch it all play out. UCLA will be in the Big Ten when you coach your first game. The history, the conference history, the program continuing to evolve. Again, congratulations, Coach. Really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
We figure that is a fitting way to welcome in our guest from The Ohio State University, Celeste Taylor. And Celeste, you've been a star in multiple conferences at this point. We're very happy to have you in the Big Ten. And as I was looking into your background, the fact that as a seventh grader, you already began playing varsity basketball at that point, sort of in the infancy of your development. What was it like at that age competing against girls who were really much older than you?
Yeah, it was difficult at first, just being able to learn new things, pick up on things quicker, mature quicker than other girls. But it was definitely a great experience. I didn't go to a great public school at first, so it was kind of a little way to put my feet in the water and taste out that environment. But it was pretty cool, and I'm definitely blessed to have that experience.
Your first stop as a college basketball player was at the University of Texas. You're down in Austin, and you were having success on the court. But through those first couple of years with that program goes through a coaching change. The COVID pandemic ends up hitting. And I'm just wondering, being as far away from home as you were in those initial seasons down in Austin, how difficult was it to manage all those different things going on?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, especially being in a place like Austin, Texas, where you have so many different distractions. But COVID definitely played a huge part in the reason why I decided to transfer, just not being able to see my family, not having them at games. My dad was able to come to the bubble when we were in San Antonio, so I got to see him there, but I hadn't seen them the whole year. So it was pretty difficult for a sophomore in college, being so far away from home. But it definitely has made me who I am today and also the player that I am.
Now, relationships played a big part in why you were at Texas, played a part in your transfer to Duke as well, just the different relationships you had established over your basketball journey. Kevin McGuff attempted to recruit you on 3 different occasions, and he finally got you to Columbus. I'm just wondering, with all the travels that you've had in the basketball world, how important have these relationships you've developed been to you?
They've been extremely, extremely, extremely huge, very impactful. From every coach that I've had to every teammate that I've had, I think relationships is the biggest thing in basketball and sports in general. Playing with other people, playing with different coaches, different styles. I mean, they've not only helped me grow as a person, but also a basketball player. And I can't ask for anything else. Coach McGuff has, like you said, recruited me for a couple years now. So to finally land in a spot that I've always been wanted, I always felt wanted from him. He's did a great job along with the rest of the coaching staff of making me feel comfortable here. So, I mean, it's played a huge, major part in my experience.
And we've been seeing the way that Ohio State has always had this sort of attacking style on each end of the court. In the time Kevin McGuff has been there, you were the reigning ACC Defensive Player of the Year prior to coming to Columbus. What is it about the Buckeye style that suits you?
I think the fast pace, the mentality that they have to go after it and win games, the success behind the program and the culture here of just competing every day in practice, competing in every game, whether we're down by 20, whether we're up by 20, the level never drops from the top to the bottom. And so I think just having that mindset and me being able to come in and see that mindset that the rest of them have has definitely drawn me to want to be a part of the program and make me feel like I'm at home.
And there's various points where it could be you, it could be J.C. Sheldon, it could be Cody McMahon, even others. There's a variety of players who at times can kind of take over a game. It's a part of why you're the number 2 team in the country, but you're the newest piece of this puzzle. So you came in with accolades, but how have you so quickly gotten ingrained in how they operate and sort of work so well with your new teammates?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely give credit to most of my experiences. Like you said, I've been in different conferences, played in different teams, played under different coaches. So I think that's definitely helped me a lot, be able to fit into a new system. But like when you join a system the first year, you're like a freshman. I mean, you have to learn everything from top to bottom. And so I give a lot of credit to my teammates and my coaches here at Ohio State because they've made sure that I've been on page with everything. You know, having the experience that I've had, I've kind of understand a lot of things. So be able to be that leader. But just thanking them for, you know, making sure that I feel comfortable within the system. And I hope that you guys see as the year goes on, we keep getting better as a team. We keep growing, whether that be me or everybody else. But as a team, you see the growth.
Now, I do consider myself a bit of a world traveler. I've seen a bit of the globe. But for you, the amount of time you've spent internationally, winning gold medals in Thailand and Belarus, Argentina, just getting to go play with some of the best players on the planet had to be fun. But from a travel perspective, is there a spot that stands out that's maybe been your favorite place you've played the game?
Yeah, I love traveling, but I would have to say it's between Thailand and Tokyo. I was able to go to Tokyo right before Thailand, so it was pretty cool. But just the experiences of the different cultures and playing against different teams, different styles, and it's been really fun. So I'm honestly so blessed to be able to travel the world through basketball.
You were able to represent the United States in doing so. You've won 3 gold medals. Most of us never win any gold medals, you know, unless they're just kind of giving them away like candy as a youth athlete. Describe that thrill. What's it like to win a gold medal?
Yeah, I mean, playing with USA Basketball is an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, when you get invited to go and try out, you know, you give it all you can, and they make sure that they say that, you know, they have gold standards. Every year they want to win gold. And so I think that mentality has been pretty cool. But wearing USA across my chest and being able to play for them is a dream come true. I mean, there's a lot of girls out there that want to do that and dream of doing that. And for me to be able to do that 3 times and then also join the 3-on-3 leagues too for USA has been really, really cool. So I'm just grateful and extremely blessed to have the opportunity to represent USA and playing a sport that I love.
And when you guys faced the Iowa Hawkeyes a few weeks ago, it wasn't quite the ratings of the Super Bowl, but it did feel like the entire world was watching as you came back and took down the number 2 team in the country on that day. Now you guys are the #2 team in America, and you're getting ready to face the squad in Nebraska that just knocked off Iowa recently in their own right. What are a couple of keys that you're going to be making sure that you and your teammates are focused on as you prepare to face Nebraska?
Yeah, sticking to our principles, sticking to what we know, what we do best, following the scout that the coaches have worked so hard to give us and show us and display to us. But I mean, at the end of the day, every given night is any Big Ten team's night. You have to be the best team that day, that night. And so we're just coming in prepared to win a game against a great competitors, great competition, a great team. So we're just looking forward to competing with each other, competing against a good team, and getting after it like we do every day in practice.
Celeste Taylor in the midst of an 11-game win streak. Best of luck to you in keeping that thing rolling with the Buckeyes.
Thank you.
We've got some breaking news out of Columbus, where multiple reports are saying that the Ohio State University has parted ways with men's basketball coach Chris Holtmann. He was the 2018 Big Ten Basketball Coach of the Year. He's in the midst of his 7th season right now. They did have a disappointing loss on the road at Wisconsin last night. You think back to those first 4 seasons, he was leading things in Columbus. They made the NCAA tournament each of those first 4 years, would have very likely made it that 5th season before the COVID pandemic cut the tournament off. But now, disappointment the last couple of seasons with Ohio State men's basketball. So again, multiple reports that Chris Holtmann will no longer lead the Buckeyes men's basketball program. And throughout all of Black History Month, we are featuring our Big Impact pioneers each day on Big Ten Today. And it is my honor, my pleasure, my privilege to now have the man himself, Darryl Hill, who was an impact and a barrier breaker in a variety of different ways throughout his athletic endeavors. Darryl, thank you so much for being with me here. And thinking about you growing up in the D.C. area back in the 40s, football wasn't the most popular sport in the country back then like it is now. I'm wondering, who were some of the athletes as a youngster that you grew up maybe hoping to emulate?
Well, a lot of great athletes came out of Washington, D.C. In the football genre. Some of my contemporaries were the great Willie Wood, who's, in the Hall of Fame for safety at Packers with the Green Bay Packers. And the great basketball players like Elgin Baylor and Dave Bing, who I had the veritable, questionable pleasure of getting my eyes shot out by when we were in high school. Somebody said, "Go check him." I said, "Oh, he's a little boy, he's in the 10th grade. I was a senior." Just the final score was our team 28, David Bing 30. DC was loaded with athletes. Football was popular, and my high school won the city championship when I was a senior, which was a big deal back in the day. So here we are 99 years later.
And you come from a long line of high achievers in your family. Your dad, Kermit, owned one of the largest Black-owned transportation trucking companies for a number of years there. Your great-grandfather was the first minority who was hired by the D.C. Fire Department many years ago. In what ways did their influence shape the type of achievement that you were willing to pursue?
Well, I think it was sort of inherited and subtly inherited. I didn't have in my mind that I was going to try to emulate my forefathers or forebears. It just so happened that they did have this history. Both of my grandfathers were groundbreakers. Not only my great-grandfather, who was the first person of color with the Washington, D.C. Fire Department, which was a big deal back in 1910. He was actually a Native American, but he was the first person of color to join. No men in my family have ever had a job. So both grandfathers on either side, mother and father's side, were businessmen, and my father, of course, continued that. My brother's a businessman, even my son. has a little small business going on now. So it must be in the blood, I guess.
And in the initial stages of your football journey, you integrated, from a football perspective, integrated your high school program. You integrated the Naval Academy, being the first African-American player at the Naval Academy. And that was even before you ended up becoming a Maryland Terrapin. But just focusing for a moment on those initial couple of stops, were you already recognizing a level of impact in being a barrier breaker at those destinations?
Not at the high school level necessarily. I was the first, at Gonzaga High School, where, by the way, the great Caleb Williams played, hoping that our Washington team was able to get him in the draft. That's an aside. But so in high school wasn't that big a deal. I grew up, I can remember when we played the high school championship game. We played against the public school champions, in which the school, Eastern High School, was basically in my neighborhood. So all the guys on the team were friends, and they used to rag on me, not derogatory, just kind of jerking my chain from time to time and saying, "Oh, you over at Gonzaga, you're playing with those white dudes." And then so after I ran the winning touchdown with a minute to go in the game to win the city championship, I walked out to my friends on the other side. I said, "Yeah, and those white dudes can block too, can't they?"
So let's move on to your time in joining up with the Terrapins. And Lee Corso was an assistant coach at Maryland at the time, and you were moving on from the Naval Academy. What was that conversation like to sort of make the decision of whether or not you were going to go and integrate football, not only for Maryland, but every program south of the Mason-Dixon line had not allowed a black player up to that point?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point. People say first in the ACC, first in football. I was the first African-American to receive a varsity athletic scholarship to play varsity sports at any major college below the Mason-Dixon line. That was the ACC, SEC, and the Midwest Conference, which is now the Big Eight, I guess. So it would the fact of giving me a scholarship was a big deal. That was sort of like an unofficial barrier, and not just football. I was the first one to get a scholarship in any sport. So sort of like the Jackie Robinson of college sports in a certain degree. And when I came to Maryland, when I got to Navy and Corso tried to recruit me, he said, "Well, don't you want to come to Maryland?" And I said, "Well, Coach, you must be forgetting, where Maryland is located and what conference it plays in." And he said, "Well, that's just the point. We think it's time that those antiquated laws, unofficial rules, are taken down, and you're the right guy." I said, "Well, right guy or not," I said, "Coach, I want to come to college and have a normal life and be a college student and have fun and drink beer and chase around the girls and do what students do." And then I said, "Look, Coach, I'm not trying to be Jackie Robinson here." So he looked at me. He said, "That was the problem." I said, "What do you mean, Coach?" And he said, "You must be scared." Well, he pressed the right button when he did that. And, the rest is history. I signed and went to Maryland, and Corso was my coach and mentor through this process. And it was after the fact that dawned on me what had happened. There was 2 full years had passed. They waited till I was a senior before another black was offered an athletic scholarship anywhere in the country, especially at the ACC and even at Maryland. So the next black to enter the league, Billy Jones, whose name was honored with me on the building, was a basketball player, but I was a senior when Billy Jones came on. So what it turned out to be, it looked like they were waiting to see what was going to happen. And I guess maybe looking back on it, if I fumbled and bumbled or dropped the ball or did something egregious, Corso told me later, he said it might have strung it out another few years. So that was sort of a pressure that I didn't know about so much that I know about now.
And I would urge everyone to take a look. I mean, your stories are well documented, just the level of bravery that you, your mother, showed in not only home environments, but certainly some of the road environments you played in back then. You know, I do want to make sure I ask you as well, though, because you mentioned the word history a moment ago. You were there in person for the March on Washington. You were there as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech. Take us back to that time. What was it like to be there witnessing that history?
Well, that was very exciting, compared to what's going on now, with all the conflict and hatred that's flying around the country. Blacks had a purpose and a goal, and, led by Dr. King and others. And it was an exciting time to be there and to be a part of this goal, and I can recall leader of Black leadership group called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, otherwise known as SNCC. And it was headed up by Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown. They were both students at Howard. And they said to me, we'd like you to lead some protests out at College Park. They was, at that time, they would sit in the executives' offices, president. They wanted me to stage a sit-in at the president's office at the University of Maryland. And I kind of said, no, I don't have time to be engaged in that kind of activity. And so Rap Brown, who had kind of a sharp tongue, kind of said, oh, and I got angry with him, and I had a few words. And finally Stokely said, look, his job is to integrate college sports. Other people can sit in the president's office. That's not what he's here for. And so that was, the end of that kind of story. The same thing happened in Navy. When I was at Navy, I was the first African-American to play any varsity sport at any military academy, as far as I know. Certainly football, an early player in football at Navy. And this is the time when Navy was flying fairly high. In fact, one day, as we were both plebes at Navy, and I first couple of days of practice, and I saw this other freshman plebe running and throwing bullets on the dead run. And I said, who are you? And he said, my name is Roger. I said, well, Roger, you could play. What's your last name? He said, Starback. I said, well, you're a pretty good player. And he said, yeah, well, I noticed you ain't dropping too many of those passes I'm throwing to you. So maybe you and I can hook up, So Roger and I were there together, and both of us at one time or another thought about leaving the academy. Roger opted to stay, and I left, obviously, and but at Navy, there was no pressure there. I didn't get any harassment from any of the midshipmen, and I got to say, at Maryland, my team was fully behind me in everything I did. And they, for example, they had a meeting. I had a doctor's appointment, which they knew about. And while I was at the doctor's appointment, they had a team meeting without me. And basically the gist of that meeting was, all right, we're going down south and we're going to stay at the Hilton and other known hotels, and blacks aren't allowed to stay. And the team voted unanimously, he don't stay, we don't stay. Which wow. More, they bit off more than they thought when they did, because we wound up having to stay in little strip motels, out in the country. They weren't happy with it.
Incredible.
But they stood with me.
Yeah.
And so
that is quite a journey, and a pioneer of Big Ten history, an encyclopedia of American history. Darryl Hill, thank you so much for your time today and for everything that you've meant to this conference, to the Maryland program, and everywhere else. Look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
Breaking news, Chris Holtmann reportedly, according to multiple reports, Ohio State has parted ways with its men's heads basketball coach, Chris Holtmann. He's in the midst of his 7th season in Columbus, made the NCAA tournament the first 4 years that he was there, leading Buckeye men's basketball. And now at this point, 2 disappointing years that have been there for the Buckeyes, and reportedly Chris Holtmann no longer will be their basketball coach. Trent Meacham back here with me, Anthony Herron in studio. And the news here, I wouldn't necessarily term it as shocking. You know, there's been some conjecture out there, certainly amongst Buckeye fans, because of some disappointment with the results on the court over the last couple of seasons here. But, you know, we're talking about a little bit off the air. I mean, Chris Holtmann had ingredients in place. He had recruited talent here, but for whatever reason, it didn't seem like the recipe was really coming together that well.
My first reaction is just unfortunate, right? This is someone's livelihood. You think of their family and all this. And I think Chris Holtmann's a really good coach. He's had success in the past. He's recruited well. He's lost guys early to the draft, maybe lost a couple transfers that hurt them. But I think he's a good coach. Just really kind of they lost it last season, and it's kind of been the same thing here this season as they've gotten into conference play. So it's unfortunate. You know, there's a high-pressure job. It's a great job, great opportunity for the right person, and just didn't quite get it done the last couple of years. And also had some unfortunate games, you know, in the NCAA tournament, I think about a few years back as a 2 seed losing to Oral Roberts. Maybe they didn't get that momentum that they could have captured at that moment.
He was the 2018 Big Ten Basketball Coach of the Year and had, you know, it seemed like some momentum building late in the season in that Big Ten tournament run that they went on last year as well. So again, multiple reports of Chris Holtmann no longer the basketball coach there in Columbus. We do have games on the court tonight. Let's start in-state college. Michigan State will face Penn State. Big win over the weekend for Tom Izzo and the Spartans, but Penn State is really showing improvement as a basketball team here. What stands out to you about tonight's matchup?
I'd say first off, both teams are playing well, and they're just one game apart between these two teams in the standings. So Michigan State's won 6 of 8, Penn State's won 3 of 4. This is a guards game in general, but especially tonight, you know, the Spartans, Walker, and Hogarth's playing well. I think when Hogarth and Malik Hall are playing well, they had 55 points against Illinois in that win. Game prior, only 10 points combined against Minnesota. That's crucial for Michigan State. Now, Penn State, Ace Baldwin, he's played as well as probably any guard in the country the last 7 games, about 17.5 points a game, 6.5 assists, leads the Big Ten, I believe, in steals. He's completely controlled games. So these guard matchups, Kanye Clary's back from injury, still seems a little bit out of sync. But if those two guys are going, they've had some big shooting nights, as the Nittany Lions have recently. I think this is going to be a great game, despite Michigan State blowing them out by 30 in their first matchup.
It's going to be breakneck tempo in that game, too. The teams will fly up and down the court. Quickly to the other game, Iowa at Maryland. The Terps, they've been a better team at home than they have on the road, and this is, I think it's proven to be in recent years a tough matchup for the Hawks.
And these teams just played a couple weeks back, and Jameer Young, Iowa had this game won, I thought, and Jameer Young made play after play, including the game winner in the final seconds. Two very different teams. Maryland, one of the best defensive teams, plays at a slow pace. Iowa, one of the best offensive teams, likes to play really fast. Iowa coming off a big comeback win against Minnesota. Maryland's reeling now a bit now. So big game for both these teams. Who can maybe get some momentum in the last half of this Big Ten season? I do like the what Iowa has going after that comeback victory against Minnesota.
It was a very disappointing defeat that Iowa suffered the last time these two teams played, to your point. I didn't get you anything, Trent, for Valentine's Day.
That's all right, man.
I'll make up for it next time. My apologies, but my thanks to everyone who joined us today. DeShaun Foster, Celeste Taylor, Darryl Hill, and of course, my guy, Big Daddy Meats, Sneak Daddy.